You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 14. Have you ever felt any barriers in your job, maybe feeling a little bit restricted in creativity? Well, my guest today talks about how this led to her finding a need in the industry and becoming a successful entrepreneur that supports women in building the businesses of their dreams. She shares what she's learned over the years becoming a business owner, how she's learned to balance the demands of work and life, and what a self-care routine looks like for her. This woman is a total inspiration, so let's jump in and hear her story. You are listening to Love Unplugged, a podcast focused on love in all its forms. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon, hopeful romantic and founder of Revue Blanc. I've found that too often love is set aside or taken for granted, and we tend to forget how to care for ourselves and our relationships in the day-to-day chaos. So let's slow down, tune in, and begin our journey of rediscovering love. From honest heart-to-heart conversations with real couples and knowledgeable guests, to deep dive reviews of new products and services that will help you feel beautiful inside and out. If you're looking for relatable advice or wanting to be inspired by real-life love stories, you've come to the right place. Without further ado, let's get to it. Hi, everyone. I am so honored to welcome Danielle Wiebe, a successful entrepreneur and founder of Business Babes Collective here in Vancouver, BC, where she created a community of collaboration, inspiration, and education to help women succeed in their businesses. Today, we're going to learn about how she started inspiring people with her business, how she has overcome struggles being a business owner, how she balances her business and marriage without losing sight of herself on all levels. So welcome, Danielle. I am so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your story, your passion, and your business. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the intro. That's so kind. My name is Danielle Wiebe. I'm the founder of Business Babes Collective. I've been running my business now for almost 5 years. So
Wow.
Crazy. I'm also a wife and I'm an auntie to 8 kids.
8
kids. So we babysit a lot. So it's kind of fun. I love what I do. It's so much fun. It's definitely challenging a lot of the time. I love building relationships with women and seeing women thrive in their business. And so that's kind of why I do what I do.
I love that. That's so good. So let's start from the beginning. What inspired you to create your business? And did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
Yes and no. I went to school knowing that I wanted to do something in business, but I wasn't sure if that looked like working for a business or having my own business. My mom has been an entrepreneur. It kind of runs through our family a little bit as well. My Opa started a business when he came to Canada. But all I knew is that I was really passionate about people. And then I also loved marketing. So like social media and, everything that came with the marketing world. And so I thought maybe I want to work for a company and be on their marketing team. So that's kind of what I originally thought that I wanted to do. And then when I graduated university, I was kind of looking for jobs and trying to kind of get myself out there. And I always felt like every job that I had, I wasn't really I wanted to do a lot with the business, but there was always those like barriers. So I don't know if anyone can kind of relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these ideas of what you want to do, but there's not the budget for it, or they don't really see the vision that you see. And so it became kind of frustrating for me because I had all these ideas, but I couldn't really act on them. And so that's what kind of really got me to look into the entrepreneurial world. And I did have a side business when I was going to university in the world of social media and website development with a business partner. And then, through that, I started networking and just kind of getting myself out there and seeing what was out there. I also started working for my mom's business, which is a really good transition because I got a lot more freedom and I got to work from home, which was really cool. Yeah. And then through networking, really, I just felt like there was a little bit of a gap in the market I felt like every time I went to a networking event, it wasn't really that much fun. And I just thought like, this could be so much more fun. It could be, people getting together and having a good time, but also networking and learning about business. And so that's what kind of gave me the original idea to start hosting events. They started really small and then just kind of grew from there. And yeah, just kind of putting one step in front of the other and seeing where it went.
How many people attended your first event?
Oh, it was super small. It was probably like 10 people. And it was like, oh, I'll bring some wine and appetizers and we'll just kind of like hang out and talk. So that was like how it started. It was very casual, nothing crazy. But then people really liked it. I think it was just like the type of people that were at the event.
Mm-hmm.
So then people were like, oh, what are you going to do next month? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'll have to plan something. So then it just kind of like snowballed from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It just kind of became naturally.
Yeah. And then that was the fall of 2014. And then in January of 2015, I decided, I'm going to actually name this and brand it and start a social media account because this is obviously something that people want and are interested in. So that's kind of where like the brand came into play.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what did you struggle with most when you were starting this business? How did you overcome them?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, there's definitely struggles like first when I started, and then obviously there's struggles throughout your business. I mean, as your business grows, there's always going to be struggles along the way. When I started, it was more the struggle of like, no one knew who we were, right? Like I was starting from complete scratch. Didn't have a social media following, didn't have any connections in the business world really. So I had to really like start from scratch in building those relationships. And so this is something I always suggest for people is that yes, social media is amazing and use it for your business, but like use social media to actually meet people and then take those relationships offline. So whether that's like going for coffee with someone or even like picking up the phone and having a phone conversation. There's so many ways that we can connect off of social media these days, via Zoom. We use Zoom all the time for our business. So make those like actual connections and those true relationships, because that's where like the opportunities are going to come. So I would ask like so many people for coffee. I would probably go out for coffee like at least 5 times a week, if not more. And it was crazy at the time. It's definitely not something that you can sustain for long periods of time, but it was really good for me because I got to meet a lot of people and kind of just share with them my vision. And then from there, it kind of grew. But yeah, it was super hard to get people out to events because I didn't know anyone and I was just starting to kind of market our events online. So learning how to do that and learning how to kind of market our events in a way that someone could, come to our social media and be like, "Ooh, I want to be at that event." So that was definitely the first kind of hurdle.
Gotcha. I like that point of getting people together and just meet them for coffee or whatever. And that's kind of like what I like to do with this podcast is you could do it over online or on Skype, or I use Zencastr, but I just don't build those relationships. You don't get to know that person and have that connection and all that stuff going forwards. Or like I've gotten the nerve to ask somebody that I was following for quite some time to go out for coffee. And she actually met me for coffee and we like chatted for 2.5 hours and it was freaking awesome.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah. So it just takes that first, like, it's so scary to reach out and just to put yourself out there. But I always try to think like the worst they can say is no, or just not reply. Right.
Exactly.
And then, you never know though in the future what that might turn into, because they might either not reply or they're, a lot of people are busy too. Right. And so, but being kind of persistent as well. And, if you really want to meet someone, it's like, support what they're doing, if they have, if they have a podcast or if they are on social media, like follow them, engage with them, support them. And then maybe one day, like they'll recognize your name or whatever, and you'll get to have that kind of deeper relationship. So I always think like if you're wanting to connect with someone, you're truly wanting to build that relationship, then take it upon yourself to like support them and what they're doing. And then ask them out for coffee, or ask them even just for like a quick phone call. Cause maybe they won't have time for like, a 2.5 hour coffee, but they could have time for like a 5-minute phone call, just to connect. And just being brave that way, I think really pays off, especially in the business world. So.
I mean, even I do, and I'm sure others do, kind of get a little nervous asking.
Oh, totally.
And I love how you said, be persistent, because it was that Instagram post that you said, follow up.
Yes.
And that actually got me to follow up with you.
Yes.
Which we end up here now. So it does work.
It's true.
But we often, like in business, my day job, I often follow up. I'm constantly following up. But when it comes to my personal business, I like shrink back for some reason. And I think others might also, but there's nothing wrong with following up. You never know if that person has like 10 billion emails in their inbox, or, maybe they have other things on the go and they just didn't see it in time and things like that. So you always kind of just want to check in if it's really important to you too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And never assume. I think like often we assume if someone doesn't reply to us, that means they're not interested. Or, if they say that they're too busy, that just means that, they don't want to meet you, or they're not interested at all. But I think that when we assume those things and we just assume that, someone hasn't replied because they're not interested or they don't like me or whatever, we kind of get in our own head about that. But like you said, normally it's just that, everyone has so much going on. We all have full calendars, right? No one's just like twiddling their thumbs.
Who's gonna contact me today?
Exactly. So I think that knowing that and understanding that as a business owner, knowing that other people have super full calendars, then it's like, okay, making it kind of worth their time. Like what would be fun for them, or what would be interesting for them, or what could you do to help them, right? And so that's kind of, I think, where we need to think instead of just assuming that people are not interested. So I think following up, that's like one of the biggest things that I suggest for people. It's like, just follow up. And if they say no, great. Like that's your end goal is to get someone to either say yes or no. It's not, you know what I mean? So if they say no, that's totally fine. And maybe you can follow up a few months from now. And we've done that so many times for speakers for our events, people to be involved as like sponsors or venues that we want to host our events at. And a lot of times the answer at first is no. And then we follow up and we, support them and we stay in touch. And then eventually sometimes it turns into a yes. So you just never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
And I find that when you go down that rabbit hole of, oh, they just don't like me or whatever, it's a lot of negative self-talk, and it has absolutely nothing to do with that other person. It's all internal.
Yes.
Right. So you need to change how your mindset kind of works and focus on other things versus kind of that whole area.
Yeah, totally. Totally agree.
So I've met you a couple times. I obviously follow you and I love your stories. You're such a sweet and lovely person, and you're just always so smiley. Did you ever have a difficult time taking charge, being the boss, leading such a large community of women, and maybe not being viewed as the nice girl? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've really tried to work on is understanding that not everyone is going to be happy with you, or not everyone is going to like you all the time, and being okay with that. That's a really hard thing for me, because I've always been someone that's like people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to like me. And I think a lot of people struggle with that too. And I think that things used to affect me a lot more when I started than they do now. So, when I faced rejection, or if someone has something to say that's not super kind, that used to totally like crush me. Like I remember specifically an email that I got in the very beginning when I was starting my community, and it crushed me. Like I was like crying for like almost a full day. Like it was really tough for me, because you put all this time and all this energy into your business. And then when someone says something negative, it just totally destroys you. It can. And so, but then I realized I'm like, I can't let those comments or those, emails affect me this way. Like I have to be stronger, and I have to understand that our community isn't for everyone, but there are people that need our community. And so something that like I learned actually from Jenna Kutcher, her podcast. Yeah. She said, keep a folder in your emails with people that have like kind of like said good things about your business or you, or how you've like changed their life or whatever. So like for us, we get messages sometimes which are like, oh, I came to one of your events and then I met this person. Now we're doing this like collaboration together. And so those are the messages that I'm like, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And I need to like save those so that I don't forget them. Or if you're someone who has like a podcast or has, a product-based business, it's like save those emails of people praising what you're doing, right? Because on those hard days where you've maybe gotten a negative review or someone has said something, those positive comments are going to come, like those are going to be the things that keep you going, because you know that there are people that need what you have to offer. Because sometimes you question yourself when you get those negative things back. You're like, I'm working so hard. Like, what am I doing wrong? So then you just have to remind yourself that there are people that need what you have to offer. So it helps you keep going.
Yes, I can definitely attest to that. Yeah. It's a good reminder.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever struggled kind of being bold and taking charge?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I hired, so Nancy and Sydney, who work for our team, when I first hired them, I had a really hard time like putting on the boss hat, because we were all like friends and we get along so well. But I think we have a really good mutual respect now. And I don't ever feel like I'm being like the boss and that I have to like, lay down the law. It's just sometimes I'm like, okay, guys, I kind of am the one to rally us to do something. Right. But yeah, it works really well because we are friends, but then also there's times where it's like, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to focus, because sometimes we get off track and start talking about, we have a team meeting and we start talking about everything else other than the business. So I'm kind of just the one to rally everyone to be like, hey, let's actually focus here. So that's kind of how I see my role.
Gotcha. How do you navigate all your to-dos and stay on time with, getting them completed, working from home or working from this lovely home? And making sure that you're staying on track. Because I find, doing something from home, I can easily get distracted.
Yeah.
Laundry needs to get done. I need to go eat. There's Netflix playing in the background.
Yes. Yeah. So I really have to be strict with myself because I get distracted really easily. I could never, like, for example, I could never like watch a show and work at the same time. It just wouldn't happen. So like, I have to just not. Even music with lyrics, people laugh at me.
Sing?
I start to, yeah. And I get so distracted. So for me, if I'm listening to music, if I'm listening to anything, it has to be like no words. And I try to put myself in situations where I'm not distracted. So actually something that I talk about a lot within our business program is one thing that I've done is turn off all my notifications on my phone. So I actually don't get any notifications, not even text messages to my phone. I just get phone calls. So that's really helped me just stay focused throughout the day. So I'm not just getting like dings on my phone that kind of pull me away from the projects that I'm working on. Excuse me. And then, yeah, other than that, I think putting myself in a environment where there's, not papers everywhere and it's not cluttered. Like I have to be like, even if my desk is a mess, I'll like take the pile of papers that's on my desk and I'll just like put it on the floor where I can't see it. And then I'll be like, okay, I can work now. So it's just trying to like keep myself really focused on what I'm doing. And also using a timer that really works. I've done that before where I will like set a timer for like 10 minutes. And then I'll be like, okay, I have to get like this email out or whatever. And I'll do that task. And then I'll set my timer again. and like do something, because that really helps me like stay on track. So those are just little hacks that
I've heard of that. The timer, like set a timer for like 60 minutes or 30 minutes to like get a task done, and then like go for a quick walk for like 5 minutes and clear your head, and then come back and do the same thing over and over again.
Totally. For me, it only really works to do like the 10-minute ones, because if I were to do 30 minutes or 60 minutes, then I would get distracted in that time. But if I do 10 minutes, then I'm like, okay, I can do this one thing that'll take me 10 minutes. And then once I'm done that, I'm like, okay, setting another timer. And then I do set a timer for like actually taking a break too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, but I don't do it all the time, but when I do use that, I'm so productive. Like it's crazy.
Keeps you on target.
Totally. Yeah.
So do you have any task organizing hacks that you swear by? So like batch working or.
Yeah. So I wish I was better at batch working. It's definitely something that I'm trying to do. I think the challenge in what we do is that we have so many things going on at once. As telling you before the call, we have 5 different chapters. So we're running events in all these different cities. And so some things come up kind of last minute, or there's things that we're kind of like, oh, this happened. Okay, how are we going to deal with this? So as much as I can, I try to batch work, but sometimes I have to be just flexible. I think it depends on your business. If you have a business that's pretty predictable, where you can really kind of batch your work, I would highly, highly suggest to do that. Like I have done that before. For example, if I have a lot of like writing to do, or if we need to, for example, get some content done, for our social media channels, then we'll do those in batches. But what I will say is that we started using Asana, recently and with our team, and it's really, really helped, because we have all the different groups for our different cities, and then we can schedule out tasks, and then you can put who does the task, you can set a due date, you can write notes, you can link like documents, you can link photos. So that's really been helpful for our team to kind of stay organized and have everything in one place. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's our, we literally just started using it, I think like a couple months ago. So it's really helped.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been trying to do is create like quick parts for emails. I find that I'm writing the same emails several times, and I'm like, I don't have to retype this every time. It's going to save me so much more time if I can just create like a template and then fill out whatever needs to be
100%
done by person.
Yes. And we have some templates like that for when people ask for specific information, because we get a lot of incoming emails just asking, similar questions. So we do have some templates like that, which is huge time saver. Yeah.
I hate retyping the same email every time.
Exactly.
So being a business owner with a growing community, I can imagine that it can be very hard to shut off work. I'm sure with your different chapters in different cities, different time zones, you can probably get emails pretty much throughout the entire day.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of set limits and kind of shut off work when needed?
Yeah, this is something that I still am working on, but I think I actually asked my husband the other day, I'm like, have I gotten better at it? Because I think I have, but you're probably better to know it. But he's like, honestly, you have. You've gotten so much better. Because I think when we first got married, it was like I was pretty much working around the clock. And I think also we were in the earlier stages of the business. And so that was tough. But I've definitely gotten better at shutting off. And often I'll take weekends off, maybe not the entire weekend, but I'll take like most of the weekend off, usually like Saturday, mid-afternoon. If I do have to do any work, I'll try to get it done like Saturday morning. And then like Saturday afternoon to evening, and then on to Sunday, I'm usually not doing any work at all. So that's been really helpful. And then also being okay with like not being active all the time on social media, because that in the past has been like, oh, I have to be active every single day and I have to post. And we have so many accounts on social media. So that in itself is almost a full-time job to be active on all those accounts. And so I've just kind of let go of the pressure of being active every single day. If I have something to say or if I want to be on there, then awesome. But I also don't just want to be posting just to post, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I want it to actually be of value and mean something and serve our community, not just like, oh, we need to throw up a post today. Let's just like throw something up and just to be there. So that's something that I've changed my perspective on a little bit, is not having that pressure on myself, but it's tough. It is to like set those boundaries and barriers for sure.
Jenna Kutcher had an email that went out with 5 apps that she uses for social media or Instagram or something. And one of them on there was I think it was called Moments.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And it tracks how much time that you're spending on your apps.
That's really scary.
And I downloaded it for one day and I was like really disappointed. I opened Instagram like 50 times.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
It's crazy how many times we do that. There's sometimes actually that I will, if I'm like really not wanting to be on social media, I'll delete Instagram from my app because I don't trust myself. Like I'm for sure going to go on there. If I have it on my phone, I'll be on there. So I have to literally delete it off of my phone to like keep myself accountable. So if we're like going on like a trip or something, then I'll delete it off. The other thing that I'll say too, this has really helped me because when I want to be active on Instagram, but I also want to really be in the moment when I'm, you know, at an event or I'm hanging out with family or whatever. So a lot of times I'll take photos, I'll take videos, whatever I'm doing. And then I won't post it in the moment and I will post it after when I'm like, you know, home, when I'm, you know, not around family or when I'm, you know, home from the event. Cause I want to be in the moment. I don't want to be like Instagramming the entire time and just miss the whole thing, right? Yeah. Like I don't want to miss the event. I don't want to miss the time with my family. So usually that's what I'll do is I'll take photos or take videos, whatever, and then I'll post them later on when I'm away from family or friends. So
that's a good thought.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this relationship of yours.
Okay.
So how did you meet? How long have you guys been married for?
So we met 2014. It was actually before I started my business. So it was the spring of 2014 and we got married. It'll be 3 years, July 30th. So maybe
happy anniversary.
Thank you. So 3 years married. And I guess it would be, 5 years. Yeah. 5 years that we've known each other.
Wow. Oh, as long as your business.
Yeah. Well, I actually met him before I started everything. Wow. So we met in the spring of 2014. That's when we started dating. We met before that, but, and then I started my business in the fall. So I actually remember specifically, after 5 months of dating, he went to Germany for his master's. He's in architecture. And I remember specifically on like Zoom, because we use Zoom for talking to each other. And I was like, I kind of started like hosting these little events. I'm like, not really sure where it's going to go. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then he actually helped me like create my first like, logo and like all that stuff. And so, he's been a part of the journey with me this whole time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you balance the demands of running this big business with the marriage? Because obviously you have to make time to nurture that relationship, and work does take a lot of time. So how do you balance all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. My husband pretty much works like 9 to 5. He works for an architecture firm. And so I try as much as possible to work within those hours. Of course, sometimes I have to work some evenings. Sometimes I'm getting up earlier. And then there are those times where sometimes I have to work a little bit on the weekends, but I really, really try to like kind of work within those hours that he's also at work so that we can spend time together. And we also really try to plan a date night every week as much as we can. So whether that be like date in the evening, or sometimes we'll get up early and we'll go for like a morning breakfast date. So yeah, I just encourage people like be creative. Like it doesn't have to be this like super extravagant date night. It's like sometimes we'll go to the coffee shop in our, in Fort Langley where we live, and we'll go to a coffee shop. We'll have breakfast and coffee there, and then he'll go to work and I'll go home to go to work.
All about quality time.
Yeah. So, and we don't have kids, but we do have nieces and nephews. So we spend a lot of time with them as well, but we try to prioritize like time just together as well. So.
Did it take any adjustment or communication when you were starting your business and working quite a bit?
Yeah.
To kind of figure out how to balance that together? Like,
yeah. Oh, 100%. I definitely, tend to be more of like a workaholic.
Okay.
And so I definitely had to learn to shut off. And that's kind of what we were talking about before, is that I feel like at the beginning of our marriage, it was always like a point of tension on like, you're working all the time. And he always talks about the fact that it's like, it's not healthy for you. And I knew that, but I was just like so in my business and so kind of consumed with it that it was really difficult for me. But yeah, I definitely have kind of set up more strict boundaries on myself for, working schedule, and then having that time together, and not just for our relationship together, but just for like my mental health too. Like it's so important to take breaks and to like allow yourself to take time away from work. So I think it's important to like really spend time thinking about how much are you working? How much are you spending time with like your family or friends? And if you're single, it's like, are you spending time just on your own? And like, are you reading books? Are you taking walks? Are you doing things that you love? Because sometimes when we start a business, we forget about all that.
Mm-hmm. It's the first thing to go is really taking care of yourself and your relationships when you're busy, right?
Exactly. And it's sad because sometimes your family gets like the worst of you because you're working for a full day, you're busy, you're stressed, maybe something happened. And then, you come together and then all of a sudden you're having a fight because of something that happened within your day, right? So that's not fair. So trying to kind of set those boundaries and really being self-aware is really important. A lot of people talk about self-care and self-love, which is awesome. But I think like self-awareness is also really important too. Just being aware of like how you're reacting to people, what you're getting triggered by. Often that will give you a lot of insight into the things that you need to work on. So
especially like if you are super stressed, you usually end up taking it out on the people that are closest to you.
Yes.
So just being aware that you're in that state. So maybe you need to take some precautions so that you're not being put in that position where you're needing to vent.
Exactly. Yeah. 100% agree.
So what do you do to take care of yourself on an individual level? You probably don't have a lot of time in your schedule. So what types of activities kind of help you reset and unwind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say quiet time in the morning. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not the best at it, but when I do take I'll get in these times where like kind of just a habit of every morning, like the first hour, I'm not doing any work. I'm just like getting ready and getting my coffee. I'll spend time either doing like devotions or reading a book or doing something just like calming. And that's just for me in the morning. And then, I think starting your day like that, and then also planning out your day before you actually start work, that's like really what kind of sets me up for the day to be really successful and for me to feel like good, right? Because if you just dive right into like your emails or checking Instagram, which I'm going to be honest, there's some mornings that is the first thing that I do and I'm not proud of it. But I really notice even like by the end of the day, if I have like a headache or I'm not feeling well, like often it's because I haven't taken that time throughout the day to just be by myself and take that time. So I think it is really important to kind of set those boundaries. And then as far as like after work, I usually try to, like have dinner, like my husband and I will have dinner together. I won't have my phone on me during that time. If I do have to do any work in the evening, I'll at least take like an hour and a half for like dinner and just like hanging out. And then it's like, okay, I have to do, an hour of work and then we can hang out after that. So trying to kind of put those boundaries into place as well. And then weekends, like I try to do really fun things on weekends. So whether it's like spend time with family or friends, sometimes we'll go away for the weekend, just even kind of locally. And I think, that's kind of like that. What I do.
So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs trying to keep a balance in their lives and trying to grow their business?
Oh, it's a good question. I think that, like we were talking about before, being self-aware is really important and knowing like when you need to take a break. I think there's definitely signs of like, I know myself and when there's times where I'm starting to feel like burnt out and I'm starting to feel like, wow, I've really been working more than I should. And so trying to actually stop it before it gets to that point, I think is really important. So having, whether it be your mornings, that's kind of your time to just, be by yourself, whatever it is for you. I think it's different for everyone. That's the other thing is that, something for me, like, reading a book or doing devotions or being by myself in the morning, that works really well for me. For someone else, it might be like going for a run or, going for a bike ride or whatever. So I think just knowing yourself and like what works for you. And another thing is change up your environment. So for me, I know that I like to, go to like a coffee shop. I'll like take a walk to our nearest coffee shop and I'll start working for a few hours there and then I'll take a walk back. And so that naturally like brings in breaks to my day because I'm spending, 10 minutes walking to a coffee shop and then working for a little bit and then 10 minutes walking back. So even if it's something simple like that, you don't have to like,
sit
make
one
it complicated
for the entire day, 8 hours, not move. And
exactly. And so just knowing yourself and just taking those breaks and also prioritizing the things that are most important to you, like your family and your friends, and scheduling the family and friends, those things, scheduling that in your calendar first, and then scheduling your work around that. That's something that I learned. I can't remember if I heard it from a podcast or a book, but they said, take your date night or, the things that you want to do within your week and schedule out those things first. Then take your work schedule and then create your work schedule around those things so that you're actually making time for that. So
I like that.
That would be my suggestion.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So if anyone wants to learn more about you or Business Babes Collective, where can they find you?
They can find me at businessbabescollective.com. That's our website. And then my personal Instagram is Danny Living Life. And then our business Instagram is Business Babes Co. And then our local chapter for Vancouver is Van City Business Babes. So they can pretty much find everything linked to my personal account. So I have my Instagram links on there and my website. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle, for taking the time to share your story with us, but also giving us valuable advice on balancing work and life. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to revueblanc.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another Unplugged conversation.